What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Let's Ask Paul, the podcast where I, Paul Abernathy, your host, answers all of your pressing electrical questions through our very free, convenient, easy portal over at paulabernathy.com, paulabernathy.com. You can listen to the podcast there. You can submit your questions there. Very easy peasy, simple. Now, there's other ways to listen to our podcasts. All you got to do is go to your favorite podcasting platform and simply search for Master the NEC podcast. And you can hear all of our Let's Ask Pauls, our Electrify, or even our Master the NEC podcasts on things like Spreaker, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, which is our most popular listening platform, by the way, and then Apple Podcasts as well. Now, you also can get the app for your phone by simply going to our website, and at the top you'll see that there's a button there that you can click, or a link you can click, and you can download the app. Now, if you see Spaces by Wix, it's because we use Wix for our corporate site, so we use their app framework. So if you see Paul Abernathy in there somewhere, you're okay. Just remember, it is our app. That's how we use it, and we utilize Wix for that application. So make sure you download it on your phone, and on the app, you can listen to podcasts anywhere. In fact, I listen on the phone that way to a lot of stuff, and I connect Bluetooth external speakers to it, like those little pucks, Alexa pucks, and things like that. So there's so many ways to listen to the podcasts, and we have over 600 podcasts that you can peruse through and listen to, all different topics. So make sure you check that out and spend some time in there. And do me a favor, whatever platform you're listening to, give us a thumbs up, give us a testimonial, let us know you listened and that you got something out of it. We appreciate every one of you that listens. We really do. And we really do want that feedback. Okay. All right, let's get into today's episode. So today's episode is a question that's talking about starting up a business. So I know that this kind of resonates with many people out there. They want to know, how do we start our business? What are the steps that I recommend when you're starting a business like an electrical contracting business? And what things do I need to be aware of? What places do I need to go? What prerequisites do I need in order to get into business? So we're going to cover all those in today's podcast, and hopefully, pull back the curtain a little bit and give you things to think about. Now, remember, every state is different. So licensing is a little different in every state, but every state does offer a website that allows you to get this information on what's required to be a contractor in your state. So you really should start your journey by looking at each one of the state that you're in, the licensing board, and they will, without a doubt, have an area on their website that talks about what you need to do to get your contractor's license. There's prerequisites. Maybe you've got to be a journeyman for 2 years before you can become a master, and then a master can get your contractor's license. Or maybe you're in a state where you are like Texas, whereas you could be a journeyman and actually become an electrical contractor, but you have to hire what's called a master of record, which means you have to hire somebody that does have a master's license in that state. That means that you could go on and do the business as a journeyman and run your business. It's your business, but you have to have a designated master in the state. And so every state may have something similar to that, but it's your responsibility to do your due diligence in your state. And all you got to do is just go to their website and look up what it takes to get a contractor's license. And they'll usually have a checklist and everything available to you. So that's your first thing. Now, I should say at this point, I need to remember this. I'm going to give you some advice here in this podcast based on my 30-some years of experience. I am not a lawyer, and I am not a tax professional. I do not create corporations, limited liability corporations. I do not give you advice on sole proprietorships. I am not an attorney. I'm simply giving you my opinion, and based on my experience in 32 years and owning multiple corporations through the years, and just my insight and experience. Okay, that's all I can offer you, and hopefully it's beneficial and helps somebody out. All right, here's the question that was submitted to me, so we want to make sure we read the question and do our best to answer it. It says, I want to start my own company. My question is how to do the logistical side, like pulling permits and getting inspections. How do I get a business license and handle taxes? Okay, straightforward questions that people ask all the time. So I'm going to be kind of giving you a lot of advice. And so we'll try to segment these things down a little bit, and I'll give you my thought process for when I start a business or what I do. And I'll try to dig back when I was, first getting my very first contractor's license in Virginia. Even though I'm in Texas now, back when I started out in Virginia, there's a process to all this. Okay, so I'll kind of talk about it. And it's going to be very specific to electrical codes. So if you're listening to this and you're not electrical, you're plumbing, mechanical, it's still going to be the same concepts. It's just different trade, right? All right, so let's kind of talk about a couple things here. Now, the permitting and the inspections, that's kind of putting the cart before the horse. So let's kind of move that to the background. Let's talk more about business licenses and taxes and all that kind of stuff first. And of course, with that, it's going to come the topic of insurances, and it's something that's important, and of course, record keeping. Okay. All right, so let's kind of go back to the beginning here. If you're in the electrical field and you're even talking about starting your own company, and since I'm an electrical, I'm going to assume that this question is talking electrical because he's made comments about permitting and license, the inspections and all that kind of stuff. So one of the first things that I need to think about is, for me, is do I meet all the prerequisites? So whatever state you're in, you need to go to that state's licensing board. They all have a website. For example, in Texas, it's TDLR, Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. In Virginia, it's DPOR, Department of Professional and Occupational Regulation. Now, on our website, electricalcodeacademy.net, on the right, you'll see a More button. You click on that, you go under it. You're going to see a link to the licensing requirements for each state. And if you click on that, you'll see these white hyperlinks, and whatever state you choose, if you click on that, that will take you to the state. And there you can look around and you'll find the requirements for contractor licensing and what it takes. All right. So again, I can't get overly detailed into that because each state's going to be a little different when it comes to prerequisites. So talking about Virginia, you have to be a journeyman electrician for an entire year, and have to hold that license for a year. Then after a year, you can apply, and then you have to get your master's. So you hold your license for a year as a journeyman, then you can test for master's. Once you get your master's license in the state, now you can apply to be an electrical contractor. Now, there's different licensing classifications in Virginia, and it might be the same in your state. There's a Class C, Class B, and a Class A. A being the highest level, C being the lowest level. The C is the easiest to get started in because that allows you to do projects at a certain price point, and you can do anything at that price point and below. And then when you get to B, you can do a little bigger jobs, and A is kind of unlimited. You can do huge jobs. If you're starting out, C is the easiest to get. So again, you just go to the website. It'll tell you all the things that you need to make sure you have in order to get a C contractor's license. And that might be, your business name, your insurances. You're going to make sure you have all that stuff in place. Your insurance is of the right monetary value that the state requires. So it'll kind of let you know all these things that you have. Okay. Now, Texas is different. Texas, you're a journeyman for 2 years. Then you can become a master. Once you become a master, then you can apply to be an electrical contractor. Now, one key difference between, let's say, a state like Virginia and Texas is that in order to be a contractor in the state of Virginia, they now require what's called a pre-licensing course. And they provide the course. You have to attend it. And it's basically records keeping, let you know licensing laws so that you renew your licenses and you protect the consumer. It's usually 6 to 8 hours or something like that. Most of the time, that's a prerequisite. It's a no-brainer. They'll tell you that. You got to take it, and you just take it. And that way, there is no excuse when it comes to making sure you follow the rules for the state when it comes to licensure, right? Texas, for example, in your state may be different. That's why you need to do your due diligence on this. And usually, like I said, you can get all of this stuff from the contractor's board on your state's website. So in Texas, there is no pre-licensing test or course or whatnot. If you're a master, you can just apply, pay the money, and you become an electrical contractor. Now, to be an electrical contractor, you have to make sure that you have the business license, and you have to make sure that you also have insurance. So they're going to protect the consumers. And so they'll tell you a certain level of insurance protection. You have 1 million or 2 million aggregate or whatever their state requires. You need to make sure you have that in place, right? Okay. Now, that's the process for your contractor's license. Now, before you even did all that, I wanted to kind of show you that's what you do if you've done all your ducks in a row. But the question was asking about business licenses and handling taxes. So let me give you that. That was the process of how it works to get your contractor's license. But we're going to have to go back to the very beginning. And this is like what happens when you wake up at 8 a.m., 7:30 a.m., 6 a.m., and you're like, okay, I want to start a business. What are those prospects? What do we have to do first before I can even do the contractor licensing process? What are the pieces I need to do first? All right. Number one, you assumed, okay, the reason we did the first one with the qualifications and everything is to make sure that you could even meet the qualifications for the state to be a contractor. And assuming you do, now we're able to go back and say, okay, now I want to get my business. I know I can meet the contractor requirements. I know I can. Now, how do I start? Okay. That's the reason I do that first, because there's no reason in going into starting a business and business license if you can't even meet the requirements to be a contractor in the state. There's no sense in wasting your time. So that's why I did it in that order. Assuming you can, now we're going to go back and look at business license. So in your jurisdiction, wherever you're at, city, county, more than likely is going to require you to have a business license. And basically, they want to track the business, make sure the business is registered within the jurisdiction. Again, I can't speak for every state. You could be out in a rural somewhere that might not have business licensing, but usually there's a business license requirement. You're going to contact your county assessor's office, or you can contact the city and ask them, where do I go to get a business license? And they're going to give you direction. The reason I say it that way is because I can't tell you every jurisdiction, every state. I have no idea. It changes. In the state of Texas, you get it by county. So I went to the Collin County, and that's where I got my business license for my contracting business. Okay. But you need to inquire about it. There's no quick fix to it. Every state is different, but you ought to be able to, every jurisdiction is different, but you ought to be able to contact your county office building or even go on their website and type in business license, and you're going to get the information you need. So getting a business license, you need to think about a business name. Now, when I think of business name, if you're going to be an electrical contractor, you need to think of a business name that's going to reflect the business that you're going to be. Like, I wouldn't get a license, a business license for XYZ Brothers and go get that license with this in the county, because it's not indicative of what you do. Now, other people will say that's fine, that you can get a fictitious name and market. But for me, why would you, if you're a small business and you're going to get into contracting, why wouldn't you just go and use your company? So XYZ Electrical Services or XYZ Electrical Contractors, or state in your name what your business is going to be, okay? I don't want you to start off struggling. You need to make the consumer and everybody aware of what your business is. Now, that's just my advice. You don't agree, you do it your way. But I'm just saying, that's what I recommend. And when I started mine, it was electrical service specialists. Okay, so it let people know that I offer electrical services. When I started out with my brother years ago in the late 80s and the early 90s, it was AA Electric. Okay, AA, both of us, Abernathy's last name, made sense. It was electric, but it told people what we did. Okay, now that might seem fairly obvious, Captain Obvious, right? But the reality is, it really makes it easier to market it and let people know and be aware, very aware of what you do. We've come to a world where people are very short in their understanding of things. They want to be quick. They want things fast. That's the birth of things like TikTok. Yeah, they want everything to be spoon-fed to them. So I don't want to make people have to think, well, what does XYZ Brothers do? Whereas if it's XYZ Electrical Contracting or XYZ Electrical, they know right off the bat, oh, they do electrical. Okay, that might sound like common sense, but trust me, people don't do it that way. And it just means that their marketing efforts, and everything boils down to marketing, they will do it wrong from the get-go, and they'll be struggling and have to spend more than they need to promote their business. So start out first that way, okay? Now, with that said, you go to your business and you get that business license, you pay that fee. The next thing you should be aware of is they're probably going to want to know if you have insurance. And again, may or may not ask this question, but they will ask it when you go to get your contractor's license. So this is a thing that you need to look at and go, look, where do I get insurance? Insurance is going to be an upfront monetary fee. You're going to have to pay it in order to do this. I recommend places like Next Insurance. Just Google Next, N-E-X-T Insurance online. It is an online insurance. They have very good ratings. They've always done me well. I got no complaints about them. I had them as a contractor for years. It's quick. On their phone, boy, you can get right to your certificate of insurance to give to somebody if needed. It will make them as additional insured. All this stuff is easy through their portal, and it's just amazingly easy. But you could go to a local insurance agent and inquire that way as well. I just found that was more problematic than it was for me just to get quick, simple, online, boom, boom, boom. And Next Insurance kind of caters to contractors, so it worked out for me. But again, wherever you go, get your insurance. Now, when you get that insurance, as you get your business license, you want to make sure that the insurance, because you haven't applied to be a contractor yet, we showed you the process, but you haven't done it yet because you just wanted to make sure that you qualified first, is you also want to make sure the insurance that you get is equal to what the state requires as an electrical contractor before you spend a dime on insurance. You got to make sure that it's going to be okay. It's going to meet the aggregates and all that good stuff, okay? Provided you do that due diligence, go on and get your insurance. Pay for it. It's usually monthly, come out monthly, or you can pay it annual. I just pay mine annually, but you can come out monthly. And so now you have the insurance and you have your business license. The next thing that I would say do at this point is contact the IRS. You simply go to irs.gov, I guess, and get an application for an EIN, Employee Identification Number. Whether you're going to have employees or not, you want to go on and get it. You want to go on and set it up with the IRS, get it in place, and you're going to get an EIN number. When you get that EIN number, that's going to be important. Keep that number. Because as you grow and you add employees, the EIN number is going to be important for you in business and tracking and taxes and whatnot as well. Okay. So that's kind of setting everything up with the IRS, setting thing up for your taxes. Now, taxes, I'm not a tax professional. So again, depending on your company and how much you make, you might have to file quarterly. You might only have to file annually. You might have to, that is something I'm not going to give you advice on. Trust me, when it comes to payments, they'll make sure you understand how to make payments, okay, directly to the IRS. Don't worry about that part. They'll make it very clear. There's a lot of information that they'll give you on that, but you have to determine whether or not you meet the thresholds to pay annually or to pay quarterly or whatnot. You'll be able to follow that. And then again, it's going to be a lot of it's going to depend on whether you are a sole proprietor, LLC, or a corporation. But again, you need to seek consultants for that, or do your due diligence online. There's good information online. I always got my company as a corporation. I never really did a sole proprietor, which is obviously the easiest. But there's a lot of information online that you can go to give you advice on that. I really am not a tax person. I am not going to give you any legal advice, so I'm not going to help you with that. But trust me, it's not going to be a problem paying your taxes. Now, if you're selling a product with that business that you're going to have to charge sales tax for, then that means you would contact your state, and that's where you would sign up to get a sales tax license so you can collect that sales tax and make sure you make that payment. And trust me, they have an online system for that you can make those payments, and they're more than happy to help you with when you contact the state. They'll answer any question you may have. Once you set up an online thing, you'll be able to make your payments that way. So again, I can't tell you how to pay your taxes. Every state's different, but trust me, don't be afraid to reach out and ask people. especially since they're going to be getting your money, they're going to be able to give you the advice you need. Okay? In every state, whether you're going to be charging sales tax, usually you don't charge sales tax for services, but you do if you sell any goods, right? So again, you can maybe apply to be tax exempt. There's a bunch of different things. I can't give you advice on that. Sorry. This is going a little bit further than I legally can do. All right, so that's how you handle the taxes. That's how you get your business license. Now, you get all those ducks in a row, then you can apply for your contractor's license. And they're going to ask you all these questions. You have your insurance, you have a business license, who's the designated master, unless you are. And then you'll get your contractor's license, and boom, bada bing, you've got your license. Okay. The next big step is obviously not one that you ask about, which is marketing. I would say starting as an electrical contractor, unless you already have people that want you to do work, or the reason you did this was because you had a customer base that was pushing you, prodding you to get your contractor's license so they could give you the work. If that's not your case, then I would recommend that you target small service work, be very diligent in giving out business cards, go to Vistaprint, cards are cheap. And everybody should have business cards. Everybody should have either magnet mounts for your vehicles or get lettering on your vehicle or whatnot. You're going to have to promote yourself. Get flyers made. Find using Google Maps, aerial. Look and find different subdivisions that are in your city. Maybe some that are older. That sweet spot is any of them that are around 10 years old. Because again, 10 years. They might need some electrical upgrades, switches changed. Maybe they want to go to smart home and add some smart switches. Maybe they want to do something like that. Maybe they want to refresh their house by hanging some new luminaires. Maybe they want to change some ceiling fans. But you won't know unless you ask. So flyers are pretty cheap. Door hangers are pretty cheap. You can take some time and hit a neighborhood and start at the beginning of the entrance and work your way around the neighborhood hanging door flyers. Remember, don't hang them on any house that has a no soliciting sign. And kind of start that way. Maybe put a coupon at the bottom. The only way you're going to do this is to get out there. Okay? You're not going to be able to put yourself online. Although I do recommend that the moment you get your business, that you go to those online things like the Googles and all that stuff and submit. And of course, you have Yelp and all those things that are local. Make sure you do submit to those as soon as possible, so they kind of get in your, the local network a little bit, so they start showing up. So you get, submit to Google and Bing and all those local networks. Again, I'm not going to tell you how to do that here, but that's just something that you do local. I do a search on Google for what you want to do, and you'll see things pop up, and you'll see that there's this local listing, whether it's Yelp or Google's local thing or whatever. Make sure you sign up for that. And they're free, right? Yelp. You definitely want to get Yelp and get on Yelp and things like that. Okay. So that's the marketing end, and we're not really here to talk about that today, but that's what you're going to do there to start promoting your business. Now, so you've got your contractor's license, you got your business license, you're ready to go, you're ready to market yourself. The next thing I would tell you is to make sure you get a good record-keeping software. Start out early and get you something like QuickBooks Pro or something. And every time you write a check or every time you receive a payment, document it in the proper categories in QuickBooks Pro. Now, I'm not here to endorse QuickBooks Pro. That's what I use, but any of them for accounting will work. But you definitely want to get into this habitual thing of tracking things early. Don't fall into this path of, I'll catch up at the end of the month, or I don't have as many sales or income coming in. I'll worry about that later. No. Get into the process of making sure that every time you write a check, you record the check, right? So again, set up your categories. And QuickBooks Pro is easy. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying that's what I use. And you can set your categories up, very simple, and track everything you do. That way, at the end of the year, when it comes to taxes, it's just a one button click, boom, and you're good to go. Okay. All right. So assuming you got your record keeping, you're ready to go. Talk about a project. So now you get a project. Somebody wants you to do a basement. We'll use Jay the Basement King Grunberg, for example. Somebody wants you to wire their basement. Okay. So you always want to make sure you follow your state's rules and have a contract, whether it's a one-page simple contract, again, protects everybody. And there's a lot of people that have lost their contractor's license because they didn't do contracts. They think that a handshake is acceptable in their state. I'm going to tell you in Virginia, that is not the case. You better have an agreement, whether it's 1 page or 50 page, you better have an agreement. And that's what you learn when you do that pre-licensing testing, okay, is what you have to have and what you're required to make sure that you have a fiduciary responsibility between you and your customer. Every state's different. Make sure you understand that. But I would do a contract in all cases, even if it's just one simple page touching all of the requirements by that state. Always have a contract. And you can get the sample contracts online and tailor it the way you want it. Pretty darn easy. Okay. Always get an agreement. Start date, finish date, materials, what's included in the job. All those type of things are normal stuff that you have on a normal contract. Now, I wouldn't do a contract if I'm coming out to just change somebody's luminaire, or I'm doing a service call, or I'm hanging a ceiling fan. No, we're talking about projects. Okay. So you get that basement. At this point, you sign the agreement between you and the customer. At this point, you need to pull a permit. So provided that permits are required in the place that you're working. I'll give you an example. In Texas, there is no permits out in the counties. In the cities, the municipalities, yes. And they have inspections. But out in the counties, like Collin County, Hunt County, things like that, there is no permitting process. Now, you still have to install things in accordance with the state because, again, you are liable if you just start doing haphazard electrical work. But as far as permitting and inspections, they don't have a process for that. But your state and your jurisdiction may be different. Let's assume that you're in a state or an area where you do have to have permitting for work like roughing in the basement, finishing out the basement. Okay. So the first thing I'd recommend you to do to get familiar with this process is to make a visit to the county office building where they do inspections, and they're going to do permitting there as well. Ask to speak to a manager and ask them to please explain the process of permitting and the process of inspections. You will find that these individuals are more than willing to explain it. Don't try to learn this on your own. You need to get to know these individuals anyway. You need to start off on the right foot, and trust me, I did this for years. I was a head of 2 jurisdictions in Virginia. I was much more favorable towards people that came in and said, "Hey, Mr. Abernathy, can you explain to me the permitting process, when I have to and when I don't? And can you explain to me the inspection process?" I would love to sit down with the customer and explain it. And a lot of websites have little videos and stuff that explain it. But the reason is I want to make sure that you're starting off on the right foot. And trust me, we don't have time as inspection divisions or administrators to keep failing people. And that's not our intent. We want to make sure you're successful because we want our community to grow. We're here to make sure that we be good stewards of our community as an inspection and a plans examiner division. So we are more than happy to explain the process to you. And if you get a jurisdiction that doesn't, or somebody that doesn't want to explain it, or they're really an a-hole about it, then go above their head. Don't be afraid to get that practice in your mind up front. Go to the building commissioner, go to the building official. If you don't get any satisfaction there, then go above their head, go to the city manager. You're trying to do things right, and you want to know the process. Now, again, you can go on their websites. They probably have the process. I know the city of Alexandria, Virginia, for example, has a nice online process that explains all of the steps of permitting, all of the steps of submitting any documents that you need to have, like blueprints or whatnot, depending on the cost of the project. It's all right there on their website. So you can go to the website and probably get that. But again, you're going to get a lot of good responses if you visit them for a couple hours or maybe even an hour. Go down to the permits and inspection department and just say, "Hey, I'm a new contractor. I want to make sure I get this right. I want to make sure I follow all the rules. I want to make your job as easy as possible," and make it seem like you're doing this for them. "Can you please explain to me the process so that I make sure that I follow it?" you're going to have a lot of benefits out of that conversation. Not only are they going to start to know who you are and start to form a relationship with them, which can be very beneficial. And it allows them to be able to explain the process directly, and there's no questions about how it's supposed to be. And then you leave knowing fully what's expected. So I encourage you to do that. You're in business. You're getting into business. Make that effort to do that. That is something that should be first on your list, is to try to communicate with them and let them know you're a new contractor. This is what you're doing. Give me any advice that you can give me. I want to do the right thing. Boy, you'd be surprised how many times that will benefit you over the long haul. All right, so once you do that, they'll explain the permitting process, pay the fee, explain how much, that's if you got permits are required in the area they're working in. And it'll identify the cost of the project, everything that's involved in it. And they'll also let you know the stages of inspections. For example, a rough-in, where they come and look at all the wiring and everything, and then they'll give you the okay. And then they can insulate it and sheetrock it. And then you'll have a point where you'll go in and put all the devices in. And then they'll call back for a final inspection. They'll come out and look at everything, make sure everything's working. And then you'll get to final approval. And then that's it. Okay. From the electrical side. Obviously, if there's framing, plumbing, mechanical, they'll do their own thing, but everybody kind of does it. And you work with the inspection authority, whether or not you call in the inspection. They'll have a phone number you call in when you're ready, or they'll have an online system that you log in using your permit that you were issued, and you'll log in and you'll initiate an inspection. It's pretty straightforward, and they'll explain all that to you. It's not something you ought to stress. It's pretty easy system to do in most jurisdictions. Now, if you're in a really small community that does permitting and does inspections, then I'm sure it's just a phone call. Call in and give your permit number and say, I'm ready for inspection, rough-in, whatnot, and they'll initiate it. That's it. So remember, you're paying money up front when you do that permit that covers these inspections. Now, if you fail an inspection, you might have a reinspection fee, which is, makes sense, right? Because, that original fee's, it's not factored in for unlimited inspections. Although I will tell you, in a lot of jurisdictions like Alexandria, Virginia, and in Richmond, it was at the discretion of the inspector whether or not to charge a reinspection fee or not. So, a lot of times they're more than willing to come out and do a reinspection fee for that original fee, and they don't charge you anything additional. Again, they want you to get it right. And so, again, that's the process. So hopefully I've kind of answered your general questions on how that's handled. Again, I'm not a lawyer or a tax professional, so trust me, when you set up your EIN with the state, with the government, IRS, and everything like that, it'll be pretty self-explanatory in how you're supposed to pay your taxes, where the portal is, you pay it. But again, there's professionals out there that can give you that advice. I'm not here to give you that advice, but it's not as nearly as difficult as you think how to do that. With my company, I pay taxes annually and rather than quarterly, because I'm a Chapter S corporation and everything funnels to me anyway. So Chapter S corporations file their taxes, but they don't pay taxes because it funnels through to me, and it just basically comes to me as a K-1 form, and I will file that way, and it affects my income personally because, that's how it funnels through. And there are benefits to that, taxation benefits, which, again, I'm not a tax person, so I'm not going to get into that. But sole proprietor works very much the same way. Whatever you sell as a company is going to translate over to you, and you got to record that on your taxes, and you're going to pay taxes on it. It's pretty straightforward. So again, it's going to cost you some money in order to understand and learn all these things. I'm certainly not here to give you all of that when it comes to formation of companies and all that stuff. It's more than enough of that on the internet, and I'm not considered an expert in any of that. So that's just my advice. So hopefully you got something out of today's episode on starting a new business, electrical contracting business. If you've got any questions that you want to submit to me over at the portal, just go to paulabernathy.com. I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions you may have. You can listen to it on all your favorite podcasting stations. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless.